24-year-old Tress Ford thought she knew where she stood in her family. As the youngest of 4 siblings, she'd always been the peacemaker, the one who remembered everyone's birthdays, organized holiday gatherings, and kept the family WhatsApp chat alive with daily check-ins. She worked as a marketing coordinator at a small tech startup in Denver, lived in a cozy one-bedroom apartment, and spent most weekends driving the 2 hours home to Boulder to have dinner with her parents, Margaret and Robert Ford. What Tress didn't know was that her family had been planning the vacation of a lifetime without her, and she was about to discover it in the most shocking way possible.
Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you.
The notification chimed on Tress's phone at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night in March. She was curled up on her secondhand couch, laptop balanced on her knees, putting the finishing touches on a social media campaign for her company's latest product launch. The glow from her MacBook screen reflected off her oversized glasses as she reached for her phone, expecting to see another work email or maybe a late-night text from her college roommate, Maya Chen. Instead, she saw something that made her stomach drop. It was a screenshot in the family group chat, Ford Family Squad, sent by her older brother, Jake. The image showed a confirmation email for a luxury resort booking, Sunset Cove Resort and Spa, Maui, Hawaii. Reservation for Ford Family Vacation. Dates, June 15, 2024. Party of 6. Robert Ford, Margaret Ford, Jake Ford, Sarah Ford, Michael Ford, Lisa Ford. Tress counted the names 3 times. 6 people. Her parents, her 3 siblings, and her sister-in-law Lisa. But no Tress Ford. Her phone buzzed with a flood of excited messages. Jake Ford, finally booked it, guys. Can't wait for our family trip to paradise. An emoji of a palm tree on a beach. Sarah Ford, OMG, I'm literally crying. This is going to be amazing. Mom and Dad deserve this so much after everything. Michael Ford, dude, that infinity pool though, best graduation gift ever. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Margaret Ford, I can't believe we're actually doing this. Robert and I have been dreaming of a family vacation like this for 20 years. Lisa Ford, thank you so much for including me. I promise I'll help with all the planning. This is going to be the perfect bonding experience. Robert Ford, can't wait to spend quality time with my favorite people in the world. This old man needs some sun and relaxation. Tress stared at her screen, waiting for someone, anyone, to notice what was glaringly obvious to her. She scrolled up through the chat history, looking for any mention of this trip, any discussion she might have missed. But there was nothing. The last message before Jake's screenshot was from her 3 days ago, sharing a funny meme about work stress. She set her laptop aside and read through the messages again, her hands starting to shake slightly. This wasn't just a spontaneous weekend trip they'd forgotten to mention. This was a week-long luxury vacation in Hawaii, the kind of trip her family had talked about taking someday for as long as she could remember. The messages kept coming. Jake Ford, did you book the snorkeling excursion too? I saw it on their website. Michael Ford, and the family spa day. Lisa, you're going to love the couples massage packages they have. Margaret Ford, I'm making a list of everything we need to pack. Sarah, remind me to get those new sundresses we looked at. Each message felt like a small knife twisting in Tress's chest. They weren't just going without her. They were actively planning, discussing details, making memories before they'd even left. And somehow, in all their excitement, not one of them had noticed her name wasn't on the reservation. Tress's thumb hovered over the keyboard. She typed and deleted a dozen different messages. Hey, I think there might be a mistake with the booking. Delete. Did you guys forget someone? Delete. I'm confused. When did we plan this trip? Delete. Finally, she settled on something simple. This looks amazing. When did we decide on Hawaii? She hit send and watched the 3 dots appear and disappear. As someone started typing, then stopped. The dots appeared again under her mother's name, then vanished. The chat fell silent for several minutes, an eternity in a family group that usually responded to messages within seconds.
Then Jake's response appeared. "Oh, hey, Tress. Yeah, we've been throwing around ideas for a while. This just kind of came together last minute when we found a good deal." But Tress knew her family well enough to read between the lines. A week at Sunset Cove Resort wasn't a last-minute deal kind of place. She pulled up the resort's website on her laptop and felt her heart sink further. Ocean View Suites starting at $800 per night, 5-star dining, private beach access, spa treatments that cost more than her monthly car payment. This was the kind of vacation you planned and saved for months in advance. Margaret Ford. "Honey, you know how these things are with your work schedule. We didn't want you to feel pressured if you couldn't get the time off." The excuse stung because it wasn't entirely untrue. Tress had missed a few family gatherings over the past year because of work obligations. She'd skipped her cousin's wedding in December because she was launching a major campaign. She'd been late to her grandmother's birthday dinner in January because of a client emergency. But she'd never missed anything this important, and she'd certainly never asked them to stop including her. Sarah Ford. "Plus, we know you're saving money for your own place and everything. We didn't want you to stress about the cost." Another half-truth that felt like a slap. Yes, Tress was saving for a house down payment, but she would have found a way to make this work. She always did when it came to family. She was the one who drove 8 hours to help Jake move into his new apartment. She was the one who took vacation days to help care for their grandfather when he was sick. She was the one who organized their parents' surprise anniversary party just 6 months ago. Michael Ford. "We're going to take so many pictures for you, though, and bring back all the good souvenirs." Tress closed her laptop with more force than necessary. Pictures and souvenirs. As if she were a distant relative they barely knew instead of their daughter and sister. She walked to her kitchen and poured herself a glass of wine, even though she had to be up early for work. Outside her apartment window, Denver city lights blurred through tears she was trying not to shed. She'd always prided herself on being the family connector, the one who kept everyone close. But apparently, when it came to the biggest family memory they'd ever make together, she wasn't even a consideration. The wine tasted bitter as she scrolled through family photos on her phone. Last Christmas, everyone gathered around their parents' dining room table. Easter brunch at Sarah's house, where Tress had brought homemade cinnamon rolls for everyone. Jake's birthday party in February, where she'd surprised him with tickets to see his favorite band. In every photo, she was right there in the middle of it all, smiling, laughing, belonging. But now, looking at these pictures, she began to notice things she'd missed before. How conversations sometimes paused when she walked into a room. How her siblings would exchange glances she couldn't quite read. How plans were already in motion by the time she heard about them. She'd always chalked it up to being the youngest, to living in a different city, to being at a different life stage. But maybe it was something else entirely. Her phone buzzed again. The family chat had moved on to discussing dinner reservations at the resort's signature restaurant. They were planning their first night's meal, debating between the oceanfront terrace and the private dining room. No one had responded to her question about when they'd decided on Hawaii, as if she'd never asked at all. Tress finished her wine and made a decision that would change everything. She opened her laptop and navigated to the Sunset Cove Resort website. If her family could plan a surprise vacation without her, she could plan her own surprise right back. June 15th to 22, 2024. The same dates, the same resort. She was going to Hawaii.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story.
The next morning arrived with the jarring sound of Tress's alarm at 6:30 a.m., but she'd barely slept. She'd spent hours the night before researching Sunset Cove Resort, reading reviews, studying the layout, and most importantly, checking availability. By 2 a.m., she'd discovered something that felt like fate. There was exactly one Ocean View suite available for June 15th to 22, room 847, just 2 floors above where her family would be staying in their connecting suites on the 6th floor. Tress sat at her kitchen table, nursing her third cup of coffee and staring at the booking page on her laptop. The total cost glared back at her. $8,947 for 7 nights, including taxes and resort fees. It represented nearly half of her carefully saved house down payment fund. Her finger hovered over the complete booking button for the 15th time. The rational part of her brain screamed that this was insane. She could take that money and go anywhere in the world, Europe, Asia, Australia. She could book her own family vacation and invite people who actually wanted her there. But something deeper, more primal, drove her toward this particular act of rebellion. For the first time in her 24 years, her family had made her feel invisible, and she refused to accept it. Her phone rang, interrupting her internal debate. Maya Chen's name flashed on the screen, accompanied by a photo of her college roommate making a ridiculous face during their sophomore year spring break. "Please tell me you didn't actually book that Hawaii trip," Maya said without preamble when Tress answered. Tress nearly choked on her coffee. "How did you—" "Your Venmo activity, genius. You transferred $8,000 from your savings at 1:47 a.m. Either you've developed a serious gambling problem or you did something spectacularly impulsive." Maya was a data analyst for a consulting firm in Chicago, and her attention to financial details bordered on supernatural. She was also the only person who knew about Tress's complicated relationship with her family's dynamics. "I haven't booked it yet," Tress admitted, switching to speakerphone so she could continue staring at the reservation page. "But I'm about to." "Tress, honey, listen to me." Maya's voice took on the patient tone she used when explaining complex spreadsheets to confused clients. "I know your family can be challenging, but spending $9,000 to crash their vacation isn't the answer." "I'm not crashing anything," Tress protested, though even as she said it, she knew how it sounded. "I'm taking my own vacation. At the resort. It's a free country." There was a long pause. Then Maya sighed in the way that meant she was switching from friend mode to therapist mode. "Okay, let's unpack this. What are you really trying to accomplish here?" The question caught Tress off guard. She'd been so focused on the logistics of booking the trip that she hadn't fully examined her motivations. I want them to see me." "They already see you, Tress. That's not the problem." "Then what is the problem?" The words came out sharper than she intended. "The problem is that you've spent your entire life trying to earn a place in your family that should have been yours by default. And now, instead of having a conversation about how their exclusion hurt you, you're about to blow up your savings account for a grand gesture that might backfire spectacularly." Tress set down her coffee mug and rubbed her temples. Maya had a point, but she also didn't understand what it felt like to be the forgotten Ford sibling. She wasn't the successful lawyer like Sarah, or the charismatic sales manager like Jake, or the recent college graduate with endless potential like Michael. She was just Tress, the one who remembered birthdays and brought snacks to family gatherings, and somehow still ended up excluded from the trip of a lifetime. What if this is exactly what I need to do? What if showing up in Hawaii forces us to finally address all the elephant-size issues we've been ignoring? Or, Maya countered, what if it creates a massive family crisis that ruins everyone's vacation and makes things worse? Before Tress could respond, her work phone started buzzing with notifications. She had a client presentation at 9 a.m. for a new campaign pitch, and she'd barely prepared. The irony wasn't lost on her. Here she was, contemplating a life-changing decision while her regular responsibilities continued to demand attention. "I have to go," she told Maya, "but I'm doing this. I can feel it in my bones that this is what I need to do." "Just promise me you'll think about it for one more day before you hit that button," Maya pleaded. "Sleep on it. Talk to someone else. Hell, talk to your family directly. But don't make this decision when you're running on 3 hours of sleep and pure emotional adrenaline." Tress agreed to wait, though she knew her mind was already made up. She closed her laptop,
got ready for work, and spent the entire day in meetings, presentations, and strategic planning sessions. But underneath every professional interaction, one thought pulsed like a heartbeat. Hawaii, Hawaii, Hawaii. During lunch, she found herself researching the resort's activities, the family spa packages her siblings had mentioned, the snorkeling excursions at Molokini Crater, the sunset dinner cruises, the private beach where her family would undoubtedly take their perfect vacation photos. She imagined herself participating in all of it, no longer the invisible sister, but a full participant in their family narrative. Her phone buzzed with another family group chat message. Margaret Ford had shared a packing checklist she'd found online, complete with Hawaii-specific recommendations for sunscreen, reef-safe products, and lightweight clothing. The list was thorough, thoughtful, and addressed to everyone, even though Tress wasn't going. Another small cut in the death by 1,000 paper cuts that had become her family relationships. By 3 p.m., Tress had made another discovery that felt like a sign from the universe. The resort offered a special solo traveler wellness package that included private yoga sessions, personalized spa treatments, and small group excursions designed for independent explorers. It was as if the universe was telling her that she didn't need to crash her family vacation. She could create her own transformative experience alongside theirs. She called Maya back during her coffee break. "I'm not going to Hawaii to prove a point to my family," Tress announced without preamble. "I'm going to prove something to myself." "And what's that?" Maya asked cautiously. "That I don't need their permission to live my life, that I can create my own happiness, my own adventures, my own memories. And if they happen to witness that transformation while we're all staying at the same resort, well, that's just a bonus." There was another long pause. Then Maya laughed. Not mockingly, but with genuine admiration. "You know what? When you put it like that, it actually sounds like the sanest thing you could do. But can I make one suggestion?" "What?" "Don't tell them you're coming. Let it be a complete surprise. If you're going to do this, do it all the way. Show up like the confident, independent woman you're becoming, not like someone seeking validation." The idea sent a thrill of terror and excitement through Tress's chest. No warnings, no explanations, no opportunities for them to talk her out of it or make her feel guilty. Just her, in Hawaii, living her best life, whether they included her or not. That evening, Tress sat at her kitchen table once more, laptop open to the booking page. But this time, instead of hesitation, she felt clarity. This wasn't about her family anymore. This was about her finally choosing herself. She clicked Complete Booking and watched as her savings account balance dropped and her confirmation email appeared. Room 847, Sunset Cove Resort and Spa, Maui, June 15th to 22nd, 2024. For the first time in months, Tress Ford felt genuinely excited about her future.
The confirmation email sat in Tress's inbox like a ticking time bomb for 3 days. Every time she opened her laptop, there it was. Your reservation at Sunset Cove Resort and Spa has been confirmed. Below it, a detailed itinerary she'd never shared with anyone for a trip her family still didn't know she was taking. But booking the trip had been the easy part. Now came the real challenge. Actually preparing for it without arousing suspicion, and more importantly, figuring out how to request a week off work during what was shaping up to be their busiest quarter of the year. Thursday morning found Tress standing outside her boss's office, holding a carefully crafted vacation request and trying to calm her nerves. David Martinez was a fair manager, but he was also under intense pressure from their CEO to deliver exceptional results for their biggest client campaign launch in June, the same week she'd be in Hawaii. "Come in, Tress," David called out, not looking up from his monitor where colorful analytics dashboards painted the story of their current projects. At 38, he'd built his reputation on being approachable but direct, and Tress had learned to appreciate his straightforward communication style over the past 2 years. "I need to talk to you about something," Tress began, settling into the chair across from his desk. "I know the timing isn't ideal, but I have a family emergency situation that requires me to take a week off in June." The lie came out smoother than she'd expected. Technically, her family's deliberate exclusion of her could be considered an emergency of sorts, a relationship crisis that required immediate intervention. David finally looked up, his expression shifting to concern. Everything okay? Is someone sick? It's complicated, Tress said, which was absolutely true. But it's something I need to handle in person. June 15th through the 22nd. She watched David's face as he pulled up his calendar and cross-referenced it with our project timeline. She could practically see the calculations happening behind his eyes. Client deadlines, team bandwidth, potential complications. That's right in the middle of the Zentech product launch campaign, the one you've been leading for the past 4 months. Tress's stomach clenched. She'd known this would be the issue, but she'd hoped David might be more flexible given her track record. In 2 years at the company, she'd never taken more than a long weekend off, and she'd consistently exceeded her performance targets. I know, she said, but I've been thinking about this, and I believe Marcus Rodriguez could handle the launch presentation. He's been involved in the project from the beginning, and honestly, he might bring a fresh perspective that the client would appreciate. This wasn't entirely selfless. Marcus had been angling for more high-profile opportunities, and Tress genuinely believed he was capable, but it was also strategic. If she positioned her absence as a development opportunity for her colleague, David might be more inclined to approve it. David leaned back in his chair, studying her face with the same intensity he brought to analyzing campaign metrics. In 2 years, you've never asked for time off for a family emergency. This must be serious. It is, Tress confirmed, meaning his gaze steadily. And I promise, if you approve this, I'll make sure everything is properly transitioned and documented before I leave. After what felt like an eternity, David nodded. Okay, but I need detailed transition documents, and you'll need to brief Marcus on every aspect of the campaign. Client preferences, alternative approaches, potential complications, everything. Relief flooded through Tress so powerfully that she almost forgot to thank him. Absolutely, I'll have everything ready by the end of next week. And Tress, David's voice carried a note of genuine concern. Whatever's going on with your family, I hope it works out okay. The kindness in his voice made her throat tight. Thank you. I really appreciate your understanding. Walking back to her desk, Tress felt the first real surge of excitement about her plan. She had official approval to be in Hawaii. Now she just needed to survive the next 2 weeks without her family discovering her secret. That afternoon, she threw herself into transition planning with an intensity that surprised even her perfectionist tendencies. She documented every client conversation, every creative decision, every potential pivot point in the campaign. She scheduled briefing sessions with Marcus, walked him through the client's communication preferences, and even shared her private notes about which team members worked best under pressure. Are you dying? Marcus asked on Friday afternoon after their 3rd intensive planning session that week. This level of documentation feels like you're preparing for your own funeral. Marcus was 31, had an MBA from Northwestern, and possessed the kind of natural charisma that made clients feel immediately comfortable. He was also one of the few colleagues who'd become a genuine friend rather than just a work acquaintance. Very funny, Tress replied, closing her laptop after saving yet another detailed process document. I just want to make sure you have everything you need to succeed. Seriously, though, is everything okay? David mentioned it was a family emergency, but you seem more excited than worried. Tress hesitated. Marcus had met her family at the company holiday party last year, where they'd charmed everyone with their easy banter and obvious affection for each other. He'd commented afterward about how lucky she was to have such a close-knit family. The irony of that observation felt particularly sharp now. It's complicated, she said finally, but I think this trip might be exactly what I need. Marcus raised an eyebrow but didn't push for details. Instead, he leaned forward with genuine curiosity. Can I give you some unsolicited advice? Do I have a choice?
Whatever this family situation is, don't go into it trying to fix everything at once. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just show up authentically and let people respond however they're going to respond. The advice hit deeper than Marcus probably intended. Tress had spent so much mental energy planning her dramatic revelation in Hawaii, imagining the shocked faces, the awkward conversations, the eventual reconciliation. But maybe the real power was in simply existing in that space, claiming her right to be there, and letting her family adjust to that reality. That weekend, Tress embarked on another first, shopping for a solo vacation wardrobe. She'd always been practical about clothing, favoring work-appropriate pieces and comfortable casual wear. But standing in the bright lights of Nordstrom's resort wear section, surrounded by flowing sundresses and vibrant swimwear, she realized she had no idea how to dress for the person she was becoming. She texted a photo of herself in a coral-colored maxi dress to Maya. Too much? Maya's response came back immediately. Not enough. You look amazing. Buy it and 3 more like it. By Sunday evening, Tress had assembled what felt like a completely new identity in clothing form. Flowing cover-ups that made her feel elegant rather than hidden. A one-piece swimsuit in deep emerald that complemented her dark hair and made her feel confident instead of self-conscious. Sandals with just enough height to make her feel taller without being impractical for walking on beaches. The total cost made her cringe slightly. Between the trip and the wardrobe, she'd spent more money on herself in 1 week than she typically did in 6 months. But every purchase felt like an investment in the version of herself she was working toward. Monday brought the first real test of her secret-keeping abilities. The family group chat exploded with activity as her siblings shared their own packing lists, debated excursion bookings, and counted down the days until their departure. Tress participated just enough to seem normal, commenting on Sarah's new sundress purchases, laughing at Jake's joke about his dad-bod beach readiness, congratulating Michael on finishing his final exams. But underneath each casual response, anticipation hummed like an electrical current. In exactly 2 weeks, she would be sitting on a plane to Hawaii, about to embark on the most impulsive, terrifying, and potentially life-changing adventure of her carefully planned existence. The old Tress would have been paralyzed by the uncertainty of it all, but this new version, the one who'd booked a solo trip to paradise and convinced her boss to let her pursue a family emergency that was really a family revolution, felt ready for whatever came next.
The first crack in Tress's carefully constructed plan appeared on a rainy Wednesday, exactly 10 days before her flight to Hawaii. She was sitting in her favorite corner booth at Blueprint Coffee, laptop open to her ever-growing Hawaii itinerary spreadsheet, when she heard a familiar laugh from across the cafe. Sarah Ford stood at the counter, her perfectly blown-out blonde hair catching the afternoon light as she chatted with the barista about oat milk alternatives. Tress's older sister by 3 years, Sarah had always carried herself with the kind of effortless confidence that came from never doubting her place in any room, or any family vacation. Tress's first instinct was to duck behind her laptop screen and pray Sarah wouldn't notice her, but it was too late. Their eyes met across the crowded cafe, and Sarah's face lit up with genuine surprise and delight. "Tress! Oh my God, what are the odds?" Sarah wove through the tables, her designer handbag perfectly coordinated with her law firm's business casual aesthetic. "I was just in the neighborhood for a deposition and needed a caffeine fix." "Hey, Sarah," Tress managed, quickly alt-tabbing away from her resort research to a work-related document. "How did the deposition go?" "Boring but necessary. Civil litigation is 90% tedium and 10% drama." Sarah slid into the booth across from her without invitation, immediately making the small space feel smaller. "What are you working on? You look super focused." "Just some campaign stuff for work," Tress said, hoping her voice sounded casual. "You know how it is before a big launch." Sarah nodded absently, then her expression shifted to something more serious. "Actually, I'm glad I ran into you. I've been meaning to call, but work has been absolutely insane. I wanted to talk about the Hawaii thing." Tress's blood pressure spiked, but she kept her expression neutral. "What about it?" "I know the way we handled it wasn't great," Sarah said, fidgeting with her coffee cup sleeve in a rare display of nervousness. "The group chat thing, I mean. Mom felt terrible afterward about how it came across." This was news to Tress.
In the 10 days since the original group chat bombshell, no one in her family had acknowledged that anything might have been handled poorly. She did? Yeah. She kept saying she should have called you directly to explain about the timing and everything. She leaned forward, her lawyer instincts kicking in as she tried to navigate delicate territory. The thing is, this trip has been in the works for months. Like, since Christmas. Mom and Dad have been saving for it specifically, and they wanted to do something special for Michael's graduation. Each word felt like a small betrayal. Months of planning. Family conversations she'd never been part of. Decisions made around dinner tables where she wasn't present. But here's the thing. Sarah continued, clearly building towards what she thought would be reassuring news. Mom and Dad are already talking about planning another trip next year, something that works better with everyone's schedules. Maybe a long weekend somewhere closer, or even a family cruise where the timing is more flexible. Tress stared at her sister, trying to process the magnitude of what she was hearing. They weren't sorry for excluding her. They were sorry for the awkward way she'd found out about it. The solution wasn't to include her in this trip, but to potentially plan a different, smaller, less significant trip at some unspecified future date. That sounds nice, Tress said carefully, because she didn't trust herself to say what she was really thinking. It's not the same as this Hawaii trip, but honestly, you're probably better off not coming to this one anyway. Sarah's voice took on the slightly condescending tone she'd perfected during law school. The resort we picked is very couple-oriented. Jake and I will be sharing a suite with connecting rooms for Mom and Dad, and Michael's bringing his girlfriend Emma. Did we mention that in the chat? Anyway, it would have been awkward with you having a room by yourself. This was a detail that hadn't appeared in any of the family group chat messages. Michael had a girlfriend now, serious enough to bring on a family vacation, and this was the first Tress was hearing about it. Another conversation that had happened around her, another relationship development she'd missed because she was apparently too peripheral to warrant inclusion in important family updates. Emma seems really sweet, Sarah continued, oblivious to the impact of her casual revelation. She's a veterinarian student at CSU. Michael met her in his ecology class last semester. They're actually talking about moving in together after graduation. Tress felt something cold and heavy settle in her stomach. Not only had she been excluded from the family vacation, but she'd also been excluded from the news that her youngest brother was in a serious relationship. How many other significant developments had happened in her family's life while she was living 2 hours away in Denver, thinking she was staying connected through daily group chat messages and weekend visits home? I should probably be going, Tress said, closing her laptop with deliberate care. I have a client call in 20 minutes. Of course, don't let me keep you from important work stuff. Sarah stood, then paused as if remembering something. Oh, and Tress, I know we don't say this enough, but we really appreciate everything you do for the family. All the birthday cards, the holiday organizing, keeping everyone connected. It doesn't go unnoticed.
The gratitude felt like salt in an open wound. She was appreciated for her service to the family, but not valued enough to be included in the family's most meaningful experiences. After Sarah left, Tress sat in the increasingly empty cafe, staring at her reflection in the dark window as evening settled over Denver. Everything Sarah had said was probably intended to be kind, reassuring, even apologetic in its own way, but the cumulative effect was devastating. Her family had been planning this trip for months without including her. They'd made assumptions about her preferences without asking. They'd decided she was better off not coming based on their perception of who she was, rather than any conversation about who she might want to be. And most cutting of all, they'd been having significant life conversations about relationships, about futures, about the kind of deep family developments that shape years of shared history, and she'd been absent from all of it. Walking back to her apartment through the drizzle, Tress felt the first real wave of doubt about her Hawaii plan. What if Sarah was right? What if she really would be miserable on a structured family vacation with couples and coordinated activities? What if her grand gesture of showing up unannounced just highlighted how much she didn't fit into their vision of family togetherness? But then another thought emerged, clearer and more powerful than her doubts. What if the problem wasn't that she didn't fit into their version of family, but that their version of family had never made room for who she actually was? That night, Tress called Maya. I met Sarah at a coffee shop today, she began without preamble. Completely by accident. Oh no, did you crack under pressure and confess everything? Worse, she tried to make me feel better about being excluded by explaining all the reasons why I'm better off not going. There was a long pause. What kind of reasons? Tress recounted the conversation, from the months of secret planning to Michael's mystery girlfriend to the assumption that she preferred independence over inclusion. With each detail, she felt Maya's silence grow more charged. Tress, Maya said finally, her voice tight with controlled anger, I take back everything I said about this trip being impulsive. Go to Hawaii, show up at that resort, not because you want to crash their vacation, but because you deserve to take up space in your own family's life. But what if? No what ifs. You've spent your entire adult life making yourself smaller to accommodate their assumptions about who you are. It's time to find out who you could be if you stopped shrinking. Hanging up the phone, Tress felt something shift inside her chest. The doubt was still there, but it was accompanied by something stronger, determination. In 9 days, she would board a plane to Hawaii, not as the forgotten Ford sibling trying to prove her worth, but as a woman finally ready to discover what it felt like to refuse to be invisible. 3 days before her scheduled departure to Hawaii, Tress's carefully constructed world began to collapse in spectacular fashion. It started with a phone call at 7:23 a.m. on a Tuesday that would later feel like the longest day of her life. Tress, I need you to get to the office immediately. David's voice carried an edge of panic that she'd never heard before. The Zentech presentation is moved up to Thursday. The client CEO is flying in from Singapore earlier than expected, and they want to see our campaign before they finalize their Q3 budget allocations. Tress sat up in bed so quickly that her head spun. Thursday? As in 2 days from now? I know, it's insane, but this is a $12 million account, and if we nail this presentation, we're looking at a potential contract extension that could fund the entire agency's growth for the next 2 years. The implications hit her like a physical blow. Thursday was June 13th. Her flight to Hawaii was scheduled for Friday morning, June 14th. The presentation she'd spent months preparing, the one she'd carefully transitioned to Marcus, was now happening 24 hours before she was supposed to be boarding a plane to confront her family. What about Marcus? She asked, though she already knew the answer from David's tone. Marcus is good, but he's not you. This campaign is your baby, Tress. You know every nuance, every backup plan, every potential client objection. I need you to lead this presentation. Tress stared at her ceiling, feeling the walls of her apartment close in around her. Everything she'd planned, everything she'd risked, suddenly hung in the balance. She could insist that Marcus handle it and stick to her Hawaii plans, but that would likely damage her professional reputation and potentially cost her colleagues their jobs if the presentation failed. Or she could cancel her trip, let her family enjoy their perfect vacation without ever knowing she'd planned to surprise them, and continue being the responsible, reliable, invisible Tress Ford, who always put everyone else's needs first. I'll be there in an hour, she said, the words feeling like they were coming from someone else's mouth. The next 48 hours blurred together in a haze of presentation slides, client research, and increasingly frantic family group chat messages that she barely had time to read. The Zentech presentation consumed every waking moment, demanding the kind of intense focus that made her forget to eat meals and sleep more than 3 hours at a time. By Wednesday evening, she'd crafted what she knew was the best work of her career, a comprehensive campaign strategy that positioned Zentech's new product line as not just innovative, but revolutionary. The presentation flowed like a story, building emotional connection while delivering hard data, addressing potential concerns before they could be voiced. But with each slide she perfected, each backup plan she developed, each contingency she prepared for, her flight to Hawaii felt more impossible.
Even if the presentation went perfectly on Thursday morning, she'd be exhausted, emotionally drained, and in no condition to handle the intensity of surprising her family at a luxury resort. That night, she called Maya at 11 p.m., her voice hoarse from rehearsing presentation talking points. "I think I have to cancel Hawaii," she said without preamble. "What? No, absolutely not." Maya's response was immediate and fierce. "What happened?" Tress explained about the presentation, the timeline conflict, the impossible choice between professional responsibility and personal breakthrough. With each word, she felt her Hawaii plans crumbling like a sandcastle hit by an unexpected wave. "Okay," Maya said when she finished. "Let me ask you something. If you cancel this trip, when will you get another opportunity to do something this brave for yourself?" "I don't know. Someday, when the timing is better." "Tress, honey, there is never going to be a perfect time to transform your life. There will always be a work crisis, a family obligation, a reason to stay small, safe, and invisible." But even as Maya spoke, Tress felt the practical realities weighing her down. The presentation was career-defining. The Hawaii trip was emotional theater that might backfire spectacularly. The choice seemed obvious when viewed through the lens of responsible adulthood. Thursday morning arrived gray and drizzling, matching Tress's mood as she stood in the Zentech conference room at 9 a.m., facing a table of executives who held her professional future in their hands. The client's CEO, Elena Vasquez, was a formidable woman in her 50s whose reputation for tough questions and tougher decisions preceded her into every room. The presentation began flawlessly. Tress moved through her carefully crafted slides with the kind of confidence that came from knowing her material inside and out. She fielded questions with ease, provided data that supported every claim, and watched as the client's expressions shifted from polite attention to genuine engagement. But then, 43 minutes into what was supposed to be an hour-long presentation, Elena Vasquez asked a question that stopped Tress cold. "This campaign is impressive," Elena said, her slight accent adding weight to her words. "But I'm curious about something. You've presented a strategy that positions our product as revolutionary, transformative, life-changing. Do you personally believe in that kind of dramatic change, or is this just marketing language?"
The question hung in the air like a challenge. Tress felt every eye in the room focused on her, waiting for her response. In that moment, she realized Elena wasn't just asking about the campaign, she was asking about authenticity, about the difference between selling transformation and living it. "I believe," Tress said slowly, "that the most powerful transformations happen when people stop waiting for permission to change their lives." Elena raised an eyebrow. "That's an interesting perspective. Can you elaborate?" And suddenly, standing in that conference room, surrounded by executives and marketing displays, Tress found herself speaking with a clarity she'd never experienced before. "Your product doesn't just offer new features," she said. "It offers people the opportunity to stop accepting limitations they never chose, to stop saying someday and start saying today. The most powerful marketing doesn't just describe transformation, it inspires people to claim it for themselves." The words seemed to come from some deeper place, some part of her that had been waiting for exactly this moment to emerge. She wasn't just selling a campaign anymore, she was articulating a philosophy of courage that she was still learning to live by. Elena smiled for the first time since entering the room. "That," she said, "is exactly the kind of authentic conviction that makes campaigns unforgettable." The presentation concluded to enthusiastic approval. Contracts were signed, hands were shaken, congratulations were offered all around. But as Tress packed up her materials, she felt hollow instead of triumphant. David found her at her desk an hour later, staring at her computer screen without really seeing it. "You should be celebrating. That presentation was incredible. Elena specifically requested you for the implementation phase." "That's great," Tress said, her voice flat. David studied her face with the same analytical intensity he brought to troubleshooting failed campaigns. What's wrong? You just landed the biggest win of your career. Tress looked at him, this boss who'd been supportive and fair and understanding, and realized she was about to disappoint him in a way that might end their professional relationship. I need to ask you something, and I need you to really hear me when I ask it. Okay. If I left right now, if I got in my car and drove to the airport and got on a plane to Hawaii, would you fire me? David blinked, clearly not having expected this question. What? Why would you? Is this about your family emergency? Yes and no. It's about the difference between selling transformation and living it. And I think I've been doing the first for so long that I forgot how to do the second. For a long moment, David said nothing. Then he leaned back in his chair and smiled. You know what? Go to Hawaii. We'll figure out the rest when you get back. 2 hours later, Tress Ford was boarding a plane to Maui, her carry-on bag hastily packed and her heart pounding with terror and anticipation in equal measure.
The first thing Tress noticed about Maui wasn't the tropical warmth or the intoxicating scent of plumeria in the air. It was the profound silence in her mind for the first time in months. As her shuttle wound through the lush landscape towards Sunset Cove Resort, she felt something she hadn't experienced since booking this trip: complete presence in the moment. Her phone had been mercifully quiet during the 6-hour flight from Denver, with only a few supportive texts from Maya and a surprisingly encouraging message from Marcus. Heard about your spontaneous Hawaiian adventure. Get some perspective, then come back and teach me how to be that brave. The resort appeared like something from a dream. Cascading infinity pools that seemed to melt into the Pacific horizon, swaying palm trees framing volcanic mountains in the distance, and an open-air lobby that felt more like a tropical sanctuary than a hotel reception area. But Tress barely registered the luxury. Her attention was entirely focused on the family of 6 people checking in at the concierge desk 30 feet away. The Ford family looked exactly like the vacation photos they'd probably spend the next week taking, coordinated in their casual resort wear, laughing about something Jake had said, Robert Ford consulting a printed itinerary while Margaret took pictures of the lobby's orchid arrangements. Michael stood close to a petite brunette who must be Emma, his girlfriend Tress was meeting for the first time. They looked comfortable together, like a couple who'd been sharing space in plans for longer than just a few months. For a moment, Tress felt the familiar urge to hang back, to observe her family from a distance, and wait for the right moment to reveal herself. But then she remembered Elena Vasquez's question from the Zentech presentation. Did she believe in transformation, or was she just selling it? Taking a deep breath, Tress walked directly to the reception desk next to where her family stood. Checking in, she said to the resort employee, her voice carrying clearly enough that conversation among the Ford family gradually ceased. Reservation under Tress Ford. The silence that followed felt like it lasted several minutes, though it was probably only seconds. She could feel her family's stares without looking at them, could practically hear their mental gears trying to process what they were witnessing. Tress! Her mother's voice carried a complex mixture of shock, confusion, and something that might have been delight. What are you doing here? Finally, Tress turned to face them, and she was struck by how different they looked from her perspective as an independent traveler rather than the excluded daughter. They seemed smaller somehow, more ordinary, just 6 people on vacation rather than the formidable family unit that had shaped her entire sense of self-worth. I'm on vacation, she said simply, accepting her room key from the still smiling resort employee. Same as you. But how did you? Jake began, then stopped, apparently unable to finish the question. How did I know you'd be here? Tress supplied. Your group chat isn't as private as you think. And apparently, great minds think alike when it comes to choosing vacation destinations.
It was a diplomatic way to frame what they all knew was an intentional choice, giving her family a face-saving explanation while establishing that she wasn't there to apologize or explain herself. Emma, the girlfriend Tress had never met, was the first to step forward with a warm smile. "You must be Michael's sister. He's told me so much about you. I'm Emma Rodriguez." She extended her hand with genuine enthusiasm. "What an amazing coincidence that you're here." The kindness in Emma's voice was disarming, and Tress felt some of her defensive tension ease. "Nice to meet you, Emma." Michael didn't mention he had a girlfriend, but that seems to be a theme with family communication lately. The comment hung in the air, just long enough to make its point without being openly hostile. Sarah shifted uncomfortably, clearly recognizing the reference to their coffee shop conversation. "Well, this is—" Robert Ford began, then seemed to lose his words. He looked older than Tress remembered, more uncertain, as if her unexpected presence had disrupted some fundamental family dynamic he'd been relying on. "Wonderful!" Margaret Ford finished for her husband, though her bright tone carried an undertone of anxiety. "Where are you staying?" Sarah asked, her lawyer instincts kicking in as she tried to gather information to understand the situation. "Room 847, 2 floors up from your family suites, according to the resort layout." The specificity of her answer made it clear that this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. She'd researched, planned, and booked deliberately. The family exchanged glances that confirmed they were all reaching the same conclusion. "How long are you here for?" Michael asked, his arm still around Emma's waist in a gesture that seemed both protective and nervous.
"A week, same as you." Tress smiled, and for the first time since arriving, it felt entirely genuine. "I thought it might be nice to finally take a real vacation. You know, the kind where you don't worry about everyone else's needs and just focus on what makes you happy." The statement was perfectly pleasant on the surface, but everyone present understood its deeper implications. This was Tress drawing a boundary, establishing herself as an individual with her own agenda, rather than the family coordinator they'd grown accustomed to. "Well," Jake said after another pause, "I guess we'll see you around the resort then." "I'm sure you will," Tress agreed. "The spa has some amazing treatments. I booked myself for the full solo traveler wellness package. Daily massages, private yoga sessions, personalized meditation coaching. Very restorative." She was laying it on a bit thick, but she wanted them to understand that she hadn't come to Hawaii to beg for inclusion in their family activities. She had her own plans, her own version of the perfect vacation, and their acceptance or rejection of her presence was irrelevant to her enjoyment. "That sounds lovely, dear," Margaret said, though her voice carried a note of bewilderment. This version of Tress, confident, independent, slightly mysterious, didn't match the daughter she thought she knew. "I should get settled in," Tress said, picking up her luggage. "I have a sunset yoga session on the beach in an hour, and I want to change into something more appropriate." As she walked toward the elevators, she heard Emma's voice behind her. "She seems really cool. I can't wait to get to know her better." And Michael's response, "Yeah, she's different than I expected. More confident, I guess." Riding the elevator to the 8th floor, Tress felt a surge of something she'd never experienced before in relation to her family. Complete emotional freedom. She wasn't angry at them, wasn't trying to prove a point, wasn't seeking their approval or inclusion. She was simply existing in the same space, pursuing her own happiness, and allowing them to respond however they chose to respond. Room 847 was everything the website had promised. A spacious suite with an ocean view balcony, a luxurious bathroom with a soaking tub, and amenities that spoke to genuine comfort rather than flashy excess. But more than the physical space, Tress felt the psychological spaciousness of being exactly where she chose to be, doing exactly what she wanted to do without reference to anyone else's expectations or needs. She changed into her new yoga clothes, flowing pants in a soft coral color and a supportive top that made her feel both comfortable and beautiful, and made her way to the beach for her first solo activity in what felt like years. The yoga instructor, a serene woman named Kalani with intricate Polynesian tattoos, led her through an hour of movement and breathwork as the sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. For the first time in months, Tress's mind was completely quiet, focused only on the sensation of her body moving through space and the rhythm of waves against the shore. As the session ended and she lay in final relaxation pose, Tress realized that the breakthrough she'd been seeking wasn't about her family at all. It was about discovering who she was when she stopped defining herself in relation to other people's needs, expectations, and limitations. Tomorrow, she would navigate whatever family dynamics arose. But tonight, she was simply Tress Ford, a woman on vacation in paradise, exactly where she belonged.
5 days into her Hawaiian vacation, Tress Ford sat alone at a beachside cafe, watching her family from a distance as they participated in a group snorkeling lesson she'd deliberately chosen not to join. Instead, she was savoring a macadamia nut pancake breakfast and planning her afternoon solo hike to the bamboo forest, an adventure that had never appeared on their family itinerary. The past week had unfolded in ways she'd never anticipated. Rather than the dramatic confrontations or emotional reconciliations she'd imagined, there had been a series of small, organic interactions that gradually shifted the entire family dynamic. It started with Emma, who'd somehow appointed herself as the bridge between Tress and the rest of the Ford family. On their second day, Emma had knocked on Tress's door with an invitation to join her for a morning walk along the beach while the others were still sleeping. "I hope this isn't overstepping," Emma said as they strolled through the soft sand, "but I want to tell you something. Michael talks about you all the time. He calls you the heart of the Ford family. He says you're the one who remembers everyone's birthdays, who checks in when people are having tough times, who keeps everyone connected." Tress had felt a familiar pang at being valued primarily for what she did for others, but Emma continued before she could respond. "But here's the thing that struck me when I met you yesterday," Emma said, pausing to watch a sea turtle surface near the shore. "You're nothing like what I expected based on their stories. They talk about you like you're this selfless caretaker figure, but you're actually this confident, independent woman with your own adventures and your own vision. It made me realize they might not really know you at all." The observation was so perceptive that it took Tress's breath away. "I don't think I knew me either," she admitted. "Not until I decided to come here." That conversation had set the tone for everything that followed. Instead of forcing family togetherness, Tress had continued with her solo traveler itinerary. Private spa treatments, individual hiking excursions, quiet dinners where she could read or journal without interruption, but she'd also remained open to connection when it arose naturally. On day 3, Sarah approached her during a quiet moment by the infinity pool. "Can I ask you something?" Sarah said, settling into the lounge chair beside her. "Are you mad at us?" Tress considered the question carefully. "No," she said finally. "I'm not mad. I'm just done trying to fit into a family dynamic that doesn't seem to have space for who I actually am." "What do you mean?" "I mean, for years, I've been the family coordinator, the one who makes sure everyone stays connected, but somewhere along the way, that became my only role. I became invisible as a person and valuable only as a service provider." Tress suggested her sunglasses, watching a couple play volleyball on the beach. "This trip made me realize I don't want to be the family's emotional manager anymore. I want to be Michael's sister and Jake's sister and your sister, not your assistant." Sarah was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I never thought about it that way. But you're right. We do kind of take you for granted." It wasn't a full apology, but it was acknowledgement.
And somehow that felt more meaningful than dramatic declarations or tearful reconciliations. The real transformation came on day 4, when Michael found her having morning coffee on her balcony. "Emma thinks I should apologize to you," he said without preamble, settling into the chair across from her. "But I'm not sure what I'm apologizing for exactly, and I don't want to give you some generic, sorry we hurt your feelings thing." Tress laughed, surprised by his directness. "Fair enough. What do you want to talk about instead?" "I want to know when you became so autonomous. Like, you're here at this incredible resort, you have your own plans, you seem completely comfortable being by yourself. When did that happen?" "About a week ago," Tress said truthfully, "when I realized that waiting for permission to live my life was never going to get me anywhere." Michael nodded slowly. "Emma thinks I talk about you like you're our family's caretaker, instead of like you're my sister." "Do you?"
Yeah, probably. But it's because I guess I never really thought about what you wanted. You always seemed happy just making sure everyone else was okay. Tress set down her coffee cup and looked at her youngest brother. Really looked at him, for the first time in years. He was 22 now, no longer the teenager she still pictured in her mind. He was thoughtful, insightful, and apparently capable of the kind of self-reflection she'd never given him credit for. "Can I tell you something?" she said. "I don't actually know what makes me happy. I've spent so much time focusing on what makes everyone else happy that I never developed my own interests, my own dreams, my own definition of a good life. So what are you going to do about that?" The question was so simple, but it cut straight to the heart of everything. "I'm going to figure it out," she said, "starting now." That afternoon, while her family participated in a group cooking class, Tress took a helicopter tour of the island, something that had never appeared on any family vacation itinerary because no one had ever asked what she might want to do. Flying over volcanic craters and hidden waterfalls, she felt a sense of possibility that had nothing to do with her family's approval or inclusion. Now, on their final full day in Hawaii, Tress was preparing for one last solo adventure. A sunrise paddleboarding session, followed by a spa treatment and a farewell dinner she'd planned for herself at the resort's most exclusive restaurant. She'd made a reservation for one, and she was genuinely excited about it. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "Family dinner tonight at 7? We found this great place." For the first time in her life, Tress typed back, "Thanks for the invite, but I have other plans. How fun." She sent the message without the familiar anxiety about disappointing people or missing out on family bonding. She had other plans, plans that made her happy, and that was enough. That evening, as she sat at a candlelit table overlooking the ocean, Tress reflected on the week that had changed everything. She hadn't fixed her family relationships, she'd transcended the need for them to be fixed. She'd discovered that the problem was never their failure to include her, it was her failure to include herself in her own life. Her phone buzzed with a series of messages from the family group chat. Margaret Ford, "Tress, we know you're having dinner by yourself tonight, and we just wanted to say we're proud of you." Robert Ford, "Your independence this week has been inspiring to watch. You've shown us all what it looks like to choose happiness." Jake Ford, "I never realized how much we relied on you to manage our family dynamics. Thank you for stepping back so we could step up." Sarah Ford, "You've been different this week. More yourself, if that makes sense. I like this version of my sister." Michael Ford, "Emma wants me to tell you that you're my new role model for confident living. Mine too, honestly." Emma Rodriguez, "Thank you for showing me what it looks like to be comfortable in your own company. You're amazing, and I'm so glad I got to meet the real you." Tress read the messages with tears in her eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness or relief. They were tears of recognition. Her family was finally seeing her as she actually was because she'd finally given them permission to do so by seeing herself clearly first. The next morning, as she boarded her flight back to Denver, Tress Ford knew she was returning home as a fundamentally different person. Not because her family had changed, but because she had claimed the right to exist fully in her own life.
Her phone buzzed with a final text from Maya. "How was Hawaii?" Tress smiled as she typed her response. "Life-changing, but not in the way I expected." She was no longer the invisible Ford sibling, the family coordinator, the one who made herself small to make others comfortable. She was Tress Ford, independent traveler, confident woman, architect of her own happiness. And for the first time in 24 years, that felt like exactly enough.
Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.